The Bat and Weasels. A bat who fell upon the ground and was caught by a weasel pleaded to be spared his life. The weasel refused, saying that he was by nature the enemy of all birds. The bat assured him that he was not a bird but a mouse, and thus was set free. Shortly afterwards, the bat again fell to the ground and was caught by another weasel, whom he likewise entreated not to eat him. The weasel said that he had a special hostility to mice. The bat assured him that he was not a mouse, but a bat, and thus a second time escaped. It is wise to turn circumstances to good account. This is Brother Hatim, and of course, this is Folk Tales for Grown Folks. And what you just heard was a story by Aesop. Now, we're going to go a little bit deeper, further, and higher. Because in each of these stories, each of these fables that Aesop left us, there's a bit of wisdom that we need to be able to pull out and use in our daily lives. Now, what we have here, we have a bat and a weasel. But as I tell my kids when I'm telling them these stories, that the bat and the weasel are just symbols. And in many ancient traditions, animals represent the lower nature of human beings, the basic instincts, the basic skills that we have and are able to use to survive. When we look at the weasel, we basically have a rat who has a keen sense of smell, quick intelligence, and the ability to almost escape anything. And then we have the bat. And the bat is basically a blind animal that survives by the ability to hear and navigate. Now, the human being, unlike the basic animals, has the five senses just like the other animals. We have the ability to see, we have the ability to hear, we have the ability to touch and to smell and to taste. But human beings supposedly have access to more senses. We have access to the intuition. We have access to the intellect. We have access to wisdom. We can learn from the past. And this supposedly separates us from the animal kingdom. But we still have a lot to learn from the animal kingdom if we humble ourselves and we listen. And that's one of the reasons I love listening to Aesop fables. I love reading the fables. I love going over them and discussing them with young people. And the reason I put this show on is because I like discussing them, period. So let's look at the wisdom that comes from this. When we go a little bit deeper, we see that the bat, obviously doing something that he wasn't supposed to do, was caught in an unfortunate situation by a predator. And the bat begged for his life. Now, the bat was in a very exposed position. He was very vulnerable at this point in time. So he begged for his life. And rather than jump into conclusions, the bat did what bats do. Now, when we look at bats, now I don't know if they knew this in the ancient world, but when we look at bats, a bat survives by his hearing. So the bat listened first to the story of the weasel. And the weasel exposed himself to the bat. The first weasel told the bat that by nature he was the enemy of birds. And the weasel automatically assumed that since this animal had wings, it must be a bird. Now, rather than arguing the point, rather than automatically throwing up a defense before the weasel could say anything. The bat sat and listened, and once he heard what the weasel hated, he immediately assured the weasel that he was not that. I am not a bird. I am a mouse. And in a sense, that's not a lie, because a bat is between a bird and a mouse. So the weasel let him go. So the next time the weasel failed, next time the bat failed, another weasel got him and said, I am a sworn enemy of the mouse. And rather than running his mouth, like some people do when they get in bad situations, the bat listened. And in listening, the bat heard that this weasel hated mice. And the bat assured the weasel that he was a bird. Now, in life, many of us end up in the same situation that the bat is in. And oftentimes we launch right into our arguments. We launch into our long diatribes. We launch into the poor and woe is me and all this. But the wisdom of the story is that the bat sat back and listened and was able to mount a defense that got him release. He turned the circumstance into something good for him, to where in two death guaranteed situations he was able to escape, because he was able to close his mouth and use his ability to hear what was in his enemy's mind. He was able to identify his enemy's intentions and was able to thwart the intention when it came to him. Now, the bat was in a weak position, and many of us, a lot of times, we are in weak positions. But because we run our mouths, we don't use our sense of hearing to make sure that we are clear on what the situation really means for us. Not only what it means for us, but what it means for the person that's about to give us the death blow. Whether we're sitting in court, whether we're getting a ticket from a police officer, whether we're about to get a detention from a teacher, whether we are being checked on a job, we want to run our mouth before we understand what the other person is bringing to the table. The wisdom of the bat teaches us that we need to learn to listen. We need to let people, in a sense, expose themselves, expose what they don't like, and find how we don't fit that situation. Now, the opposite end of that story is that many of us are like the weasel. Now, the weasel was, according to this story, very foolish, but we know that the weasel is not that foolish, because the weasel has survived for a very long time. But the eagle was so consumed by hate and focus that he couldn't see that in both accounts, or they couldn't see that in both accounts, they had been fooled. They listened, in a sense, to the eagle like many of us do. They heard what they wanted to hear. Well, I'm not a bird. I'm not a mouse. You know what I'm saying? How many times do we end up in situations where we are so eager to destroy something, or so angry with something, that we allow our thinking and what a lot of people call our common sense to escape us, and we see what other people want us to see without even thinking about it. Aesop fables allow us to do what I call deeper, higher, and further thinking. I'll go a little bit more into that tomorrow morning in my show. But when we look at these simple fables, they give us keys to live a good and powerful life. Now, this is what I hope. I hope that you listen and understand that my view is only one of a trillion different combinations that people could come up with these stories within this story, because it's some stuff that I know that I missed, and I just can't wait to hear some of your ideas around these stories. So this is story number 2, The Bat and The Weasels. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please share it. I kind of took out the cussing, so if you want to share it with kids, you can. This has been Brother Hatim. I'd like to thank you for listening, and I pray that your day will be as beautiful as you are. And once again, I will see you in the morning. Forgive yourself permission. Feel free to check me out at www.gyenyamey.com. That's www.gyenyame.journey, JOURNEY.com. And thank you. Good night.